There's a film here on IMDb called The Big Tits Dragon. I'm not joking.
4.3 on IMDb.
2010.
I mean, how that would rank with us.
The Big Tits Dragon. What a great title.
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Off Radar Podcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar.
Here we go.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice one.
Yes. Welcome back to Off Radar. Nige is not pleased.
Not
that
we're like, is this what we call professionalism?
Where's the professionalism?
I'm James Smith. I'm joined by Neil Brock.
Hi ho, hello.
Okay, I'm trying to work out the link there.
We're talking about all those like short people.
Oh, wow.
Big shorts, all the seven dwarfs. That's what we're doing today, aren't we?
We are.
He's here all night.
Not. But we call Neil Nige or Sleepy or Dopey or one of the others.
Oh no.
And James Eatock.
Hello. That's what you're getting from me.
Oh.
After Nige. Jesus.
Yeah, and welcome back. Today we are doing a film that was recommended by one of our listeners. This was recommended by Stephen Leong-Son, who is a friend of ours and a big fan of the podcast. And the film that he has recommended is called The Big Short. First up, had we seen this film before Steve recommended for us to watch it? Nige?
I had indeed, yeah. It came out, when did it come out? Like 2015 or something. So I reckon I saw it. You know what? I think I might have seen this at the cinema because for a period of time I used to get like free cinema tickets through like doing a certain number of steps per day, bizarrely.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So I used my exercise to go and sit on my backside and eat some popcorn and watch a movie. And one of the films I watched was The Big Short. So yeah.
What an
but
incentive.
I haven't seen it since, and only like very, very recently had I watched it for this podcast.
Well, be honest, you literally just watched it as we press record.
Yeah, I just watched it. The credit music is still going in my head. That's how recently I watched it.
Eatock, had you seen this one?
Yeah, I actually saw it at the cinema. My friend and I guess it was through that phase where, well, not phase, we used to go to the cinema every Sunday. And yeah, he and I rocked up and it was one of those days where you look at the thing, go, what should we go and see? It wasn't let's go to the cinema to see The Big Short. It's like, well, let's go and see this film. And yeah, we saw it. I actually, tell a lie, I think I had seen the trailer with Margot Robbie in a bubble bath. So I was like, I think I want to see this.
Bubble bath with Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Watching a trailer for this film. That is impressive.
What a Nigel's on some acid today. I think you'll find. But yeah, no, I remember that. I think it was in the trailer anyway. But yeah, I saw this film with my friend, and yeah, we saw a film at the cinema.
Cool.
What about you, Smith?
Yeah, I had seen it, but I think I saw this wrong in the sense that I watched it.
He watched it backwards. You watched it in German. That's what Smith does.
Well, it might as well have been in parts, but no, I watched it on a plane. And
on a plane?
At first, like, I didn't enjoy it on a plane because there was obviously, well, you've seen the film, there's a lot to take in, there's a lot of content, and I never really wanted to watch it again. So when it came up, I was interested to watch it, but not actually keen on watching it. So we will see. And yeah, The Big Short. So it was Written and directed by Adam McKay, and also the Charles Randolph was the co-writer. I was looking up Adam McKay before we did the pod, and I didn't really recognise his name. But then you look at some of his films, and it's like the most recent is Don't Look Up.
Which I saw with had quite a stellar casting.
Leo D.
J-Law's in it. Yeah, a bit of Leo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep. So
yeah, and then he also did Vice, and so very much these kind of satirical, kind of political.
But he started out with ridiculous comedies.
Yeah,
like Anchorman and Talladega.
Nights. I just put Ricky Bobby, but Step Brothers, the other guys, both Anchormans. Yeah, which surprised me. I just didn't realise that he'd kind of gone from that into this kind of genre, and it's got a massive cast, but
massive cast.
Yeah, I guess biggest names in it. Let's do those. Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and Brad Pitt.
Brad.
And I've written a little bit of a synopsis. But
good luck.
It's very top level.
Yep.
Do not expect to know much more about this.
You mean surface level as opposed to top level implies this is the best synopsis you've ever written.
Oh, does it? Oh, yeah, surface.
Yeah. Surface level is,
I think, is what you're looking for. Just a very
it's
broad overview.
General
an overview, which is fine because
fine.
I think even they say in this film you might not understand bits of it because it's confusing. Okay, so the story. An eccentric hedge fund manager, Michael Burry, played by Christian Bale, predicts the housing market collapse. He invests heavily in credit default swaps, catching the attention of the skeptical banker Jared Vennett, played by Ryan Gosling, and Mark Baum, played by Steve Carell. Meanwhile, a pair of young investors, Charlie Geller, who's John Magario, and Jamie Shipley, Finn Wittrock, stumble upon the same prediction, enlisting the help of a retired banker, Ben Rickett, played by Brad Pitt, and the film follows the characters investigating what is happening, some making huge amounts of money, and satirically looks at corporation greed and then the consequences.
Well, I think one very key thing to mention is this is based on a true story. So,
I guess it's worth pointing out straight away that this is obviously about the 2008 financial crash, which we're all familiar with. And
not if you were born in 2009, you might not be.
Well, it would have affected you in some short form of way.
Michael, how are you?
I found something really interesting. The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
It's a time bomb.
So Mike Burry, who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan.
Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does.
Well, yeah, it's based on a true story, based on a book as well, like sort of outlining it. I was reading some information earlier that suggested, like sometimes when a film gets released based on like a historical incident, that there's quite a lot of people who are quick to say, oh, none of that actually happened. Like Braveheart's like 2% truth. It's all a load of nonsense. Someone came out and said this film's like 91% accurate, which seems a very specific figure. But then based on this film that is all about figures, I suppose it's quite appropriate. There's a few bits of artistic license, of course, to try and make it a bit more entertaining, because it's what you would sort of declare quite a dry subject for a lot of people. But yeah, it's based on truth, and yeah, absolutely, there was a huge financial crash. I think, 8 million people were made unemployed, 6 million people lost their homes in the States. It was pretty significant.
You know what? I'm pissed off. American people are getting screwed by the big banks. And I am getting madder and madder.
It's unbelievable.
Then this guy walks into my office and says,
there's some shady stuff going down.
All the banks were having a big old party. A few outsiders saw when no one else could. The whole world economy might collapse.
starting with the film, the first thing that I noticed, like the intro of this film, it felt to me like a little bit like a Scorsese film, in the fact that we've got this very slick narration. We've got Ryan Gosling straight away talking to the camera, almost a bit kind of Wolf and Wall Street kind of style, and the breaking of that fourth wall is done well. It's done throughout the whole film.
Yeah, not just by him, by other characters.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be halfway through a little kind of drama piece and someone will look to the camera and explain it, or like you said, like someone will say, oh, here's Margot Robbie in a bubble bath explaining whatever. But yeah, really interesting and quick and slick and kind of stylish start.
And yeah, you would argue it probably was modelled slightly on The Wolf of Wall Street. It did was released a couple of years afterwards. There's obviously, I suppose, when you're talking about sort of financial movies as well, you can think back to Wall Street from the 80s as well. Yeah. Like there's this kind of style element, and I think with Adam McKay as well, again, I guess his style has been so kind of outrageous comedy, is that to suddenly be this like jerky camera, like slightly documentary, but certainly a slicker style than that. It's quite surprising if you know who the director is. But yeah, I think it kind of struggles a little bit with kind of that. Again, it's weird talking about a film that's only 8 years old, that it seems a little bit of its time, that there was necessarily a certain sort of feel to films released in that period. But to me, it kind of, watching it back as recently as I did, that really kind of stood out to me. It's not as obviously jarring as, say, watching a film from the noughties or the 90s where it's really obvious and it's just a bit like, ooh, this is...
Why do you feel it's of its time? Because of the subject matter, or you're talking about style, though,
style, absolutely the style, yeah. The way it's shot, the way the way it's cut, the way that certain aspects... the documentary footage spliced, the way they kind of use like
that's interesting.
Little quotes on screen,
the stills and
the film. But yeah, you're very right on that.
I mean, I thought that was, in some ways, some of that was quite refreshing in the sense, like, you know, like the stills and the kind of clips of documentary footage and stuff like that. I mean, it does kind of take you out of it for a minute, but the camera is always moving, like you said, and it's really like documentary-ish, but it's always moving. It never is locked off in, I don't think, any scenes. And then the editing is like incredibly sharp, quick fire cuts. Sometimes they'll just stop like a song or someone talking, and I really like that. I thought that was really like, you know, but yeah, I guess there is that argument that sometimes, is this style over kind of other matters, but maybe,
I feel like the film has to present a certain style. And like Nigel points out, it's kind of a somewhat dated style, but at the time it was of its time.
They do try and make it look like 2007, 2008 as well, which is interesting.
Definitely, but I feel like they have to give you something to look at visually and keep the edits quick, because, let's be honest, I would say 90-something% of the audience have no real clue as to what specifically is going on. Like, in terms of, we understand the conflicts and, they need to do this, and but truthfully, we don't understand. You know, I mean, I'm a big fan of the TV show Billions. I love Billions. It's a great show. But they've said on that, like, many of the actors are like, we don't understand what shorting is. We understand that they need to do this to do that, but it's one of those things where, you know, I understand the process of what shorting is, but don't ask me to understand how the stock market works. I mean, like the basic premise of it is, the summary is, these guys bet on the fall of the economy. It's simple as that. They bet on the fall of the economy, and that's kind of all you need to know. So when you present these very, let's be honest, like, the acting in this is fantastic. You've got such defined characters, some actors acting out of type, as it were.
This film was kind of written originally without sort of Adam McKay having direct involvement in it, but kind of sat on a shelf for 2 years because, as you say, the subject matter was one where, well, who's going to take a gamble on that in terms of a studio? It's not the sort of film that traditionally makes money. And only when he came in, they sort of looked at the script in such a way as like, how can we sort of give this that kind of hook almost? And they did that by the addressing, the sort of the fourth wall breaking, the characters, the fact they managed to get such an amazing cast. And actually Adam McKay had to agree with Paramount. The only way they would let him make the film was that he said, yeah, I'll do an Anchorman 2, basically. That was how this film got made.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of like the leverage that he had. So it was really interesting, as you say. And going on to talk about the actors as well, of course, like the cast is unbelievable.
I'm sure the world's banks have more incentives than greed.
You're wrong. No one's paying attention.
The banks got greedy, and we can profit off of their stupidity.
You want to bet against the banks?
I think we're either high or having a stroke. Kind of brilliant.
And Gosling, I mean, he's so, Gosling gets a lot of shtick. But I've always been a fan of him, like ever since he did the film with, he was with Russell Crowe in The Nice Guys. I love that film so much.
Yeah.
And that was the film where I was like, yes, Driver made me go, oh, this guy's great. But Nice Guys was like, oh, this guy can do comedy acting as well. And that kind of, he's got so much charm and charisma. I think for a long time he was quite the...
He felt nothing from me for a while.
Yeah,
like when I watched Drive, I was like, man, I want some emotion from you. And then I think I saw Blue Valentine, which is like a really like heavy going drama, and he was incredible in that. And the Pines one, Place Beyond the Pines, he's very good in. But this, like you say, really kind of surprised me a bit, his character in this, because it is a bit Leo-ish in the way he presents himself. He's confident and assured, and
his fourth wall breaks are great.
So I was right. I took a rash of shit for 2 years, but I was right, and everyone was wrong.
But one of my favourites is when he's having the meeting. He brings in, he's like his math specialist, and he's like, of course this guy's great. Look at his face, and then
someone's like, that's a bit racist.
That's a bit racist. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's the bit, that bit off camera, mate.
Yeah, I bet that's improvised as well from Carell.
Well, McKay did say he wanted to improvise as much as possible, and you feel like that Gosling's character, like that almost narrator, but like the nudge, nudge, wink, wink, is definitely.
And we know that Steve Carell is, one of the best improvisers, in the scene. So like when you chuck him into those scenes, that's a bit racist or whatever. Which at some moments in this film, Steve Carell, it's good to move on to him, I guess. But I mean, we've talked about him in a previous podcast, Little Miss Sunshine. But in this, he's kind of morphed into this. I totally forgot he was in this film, but he's kind of morphed into this absolutely wonderful character who's actually got the most kind of depth and backstory with his brother dying, so that you do feel like a bit. Well, I've personally felt a bit more for this character than the other characters.
I feel like he's the character that sounds like such a cliche, but he's the one that goes on the biggest journey.
Yeah.
Because especially the scene in the restaurant where he has the meeting with the CDO guy, and this CDO is the insight. That's such a fantastic scene where Carell's character knows that he's being fed all this garbage, and just this guy eating in front of him is bragging about like how corrupt, and it's like he's reveling in it. And Steve Carell is just breaking, and everybody on the table's like, look at him, like
waiting for him to explode.
Yeah, waiting for him to explode. And that performance is so wonderful, because it's just this like sadness, this. But he and it's all kind of bottling up as well. And it's just, I remember watching that scene in the cinema, and then again when I rewatched it.
But we're not in the Merrill Lynch building.
Okay, where are you?
We're in New Jersey.
You're 20 minutes away.
Well, 5 Visa helicopter. It's funny, huh?
That's hilarious.
Oh boy, your boss is about to explode.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the film where he plays DuPont, the
Foxcatcher.
Fucking amazing.
Well, again, a point on this, like him and Adam McKay, Steve Carell and Adam McKay were friends. Obviously, he was in Anchorman. It was one of his first like sort of breakthrough roles in a film. And in the first one, really, his character was a little bit background, I guess, as part of a larger ensemble. And then after, I think it was like the 40-Year-Old Virgin, his career obviously went massive. Well, Adam McKay didn't even consider Steve Carell for this role when he was like starting to develop it. It was only after he watched Foxcatcher he was like, you know what, Steve Carell could do this, and sort of the rest is history. And someone we haven't touched upon, and Smith mentioned about the backstories as well, is Christian Bale.
Yes.
Now, I think Christian Bale's the closest thing we've got these days to someone of almost in like a Daniel Day-Lewis ilk. Of, like pushing the boundaries, doing those kind of roles where he sort of envelops the character. Like you think of things like Machinist. Well, they actually did that through CGI, but like thinking of like Christian Bale, like
the Machinist when he lost all that weight was terrifying, wasn't it? It was.
He's always kind of pushing things to the limit, and I feel like this for him, it sounds a bit harsh really, but he's always kind of looking for that almost like the Oscar role, someone with a slight quirk or an interesting character trait that he can sort of take advantage of.
Several emails to my investors letting them know that the second quarter of 2007 is when our housing positions show returns, and I've been very clear.
This character is clearly a very unusual character, I guess, with certain mannerisms, like a big metal fan, like as you mentioned, he's got a fake eye.
The metal fan is like really unique.
It's so against what you would imagine that kind of person to be, like a hedge fund, whatever he is, you know, like someone like playing the drums and screaming and that, but he's so awkward and has these like personality traits that are they're awkward to watch on screen especially when he's interacting with other people, like the assistant that is in the room, and he's like, can you come in early tomorrow morning? It's an incredible performance, I thought. But
well, he met again, so based on a true story, this is the kind of thing where when does it become like you just sort of replicating someone's mannerisms and when you actually like performing. But he had an hour meeting arranged with Michael Burry, and it ended up they just talked for like 8 or 9 hours because again just was such an unusual character and kind of wanted to get as deep into who this person was as he possibly could. So yeah, the real Dr. Michael Burry. And he also said as well, like the clothes he sort of wears, he's wearing like cargo pants and a t-shirt, he's got trainers on. At one point he's like scratching his feet on the table. It's an absolute mile away from that kind of like yuppie business, like so again, Wall Street style money situation.
Well, I mean, you compare the roles of Christian Bale in American Psycho and Christian Bale in this.
Very true.
Yeah, like that's you got two very different versions of Wall Street there. But yeah, and I mean, in fairness, like American Psycho is not a real story. Let's hope not. But I really the cast in this are phenomenal. I love Brad Pitt though, because I love Brad Pitt when he's not
so slick and
like when and here he's like a retired. He feels like an elderly gentleman. I'm sure when he made this, it was probably in his 50s, if not 60s. I don't know how old Brad Pitt is these days, but he's going to be getting on in years. And I love that the role he plays is almost like this sage-like character that got out the market. And these two young guys who are, I can't remember the actors' names, but they pop up in the story, and they've spotted this, that the bubble's going to burst. There's going to be this huge crash. We can bet against it and make a crap load of money. They approach Brad Pitt, and one of my favourite lines in the film, which I wrote down, is I think at one point they're on the phone with him and they start like they're celebrating and they're like, yes, the two young guys to Brad Pitt, they're like, yeah, oh my God, we're gonna make all this money. And Brad Pitt kind of stops them from celebrating, and he says, if we're right, he goes, people lose homes,
people lose jobs, people lose retirement savings, people lose pensions. You know what I hate about fucking banking? It reduces people to numbers. Here's a number. Every 1% unemployment goes up. 40,000 people die. Did you know that?
No.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
They were just excited. Just don't fucking dance.
And it is that thing, isn't it? It's what everybody does in this. Well, what the whole shorting thing. It's not illegal. It's not rule breaking. It's just kind of going, kind of maneuvering and taking advantage of a bad situation. And it, like I said earlier, I won't ever profess to understanding how the stock market works. And I'm sure there are a few people that work in the stock market that don't understand how the stock market works. But it's that thing of, if you're in that and you know how to play the game, because that's exactly what it is, then by all means do what you must. And yeah, it's cutthroat and everything, but again, these guys did nothing wrong from a moral standpoint. Maybe they did, they made money off misery, a misfortune, but
I think that's what...
Who fucking doesn't these days?
Well, yeah, it's true. And that's what Steve Carell's character is almost like the voice of the audience, isn't he?
He absolutely is.
Like there's a scene very late on where he gets up in the kind of auditorium and asks questions to the guy. And then he takes a phone call. He asks like questions in the middle of a conference, which is in Vegas, by the way. And I wanted to point out how they show Vegas, because Vegas, we're so used to in film being glossy and slick and you've seen very glamorous, but in this it's like some signs and some like people like walking around looking like just normal people, looking poor, and it's showing Vegas in a very kind of corporate and unpolished look. There's no casino, there's no glamour in this.
Is the Vegas...
That's where the conference
scene where he
is.
There's a little bit. Selena Gomez is like cameo when they're playing blackjack.
Oh, that's true. That is slick, that bit. But
you were going to say,
the Vegas scene, is that where Steve Carell has the conversation with the stripper? Because that scene's brilliant, where he's with the stripper, and the trope is he's just going to be getting a lap dance or something, but he's having a conversation with her, and she's still dancing and stuff, and it's kind of where the pieces of the puzzle for him start to fall into place, where she says something. I wrote down, she says, "I have 5 houses and a condo," and I think the next scene is him walking out going, "There's a bubble, it's about to burst." Like that's where Steve Carell realizes.
Yeah, he's finally convinced that. Yeah, because basically Ryan Gosling comes to him with this opportunity to sort of take advantage of this, buy the short or whatever it is, and who's this guy? What's his angle? Kind of thing, and he realized actually no, he wants to make shitloads of money, and we can make it too by betting on the downfall of basically the economy and millions of people being out of jobs and so on and so forth. So it's quite a tragic tale, really. The way it's dressed up is very slick, but there's definitely somber notes in this film.
I don't think it hides away from that.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. It definitely kind of not revels in it. That's the wrong word, but it definitely says, look at this. This shit really happened.
There's a scene when those guys are bragging, like outrageously bragging about the amount of money they're going to make, and someone says, well, you're profiting off of what will happen, and people are going to lose their jobs and homes, and then they just make a joke about it and carry on, and it's awkward. And I think at times in this film, Adam McKay wants you as the audience to feel awkward, that you're kind of watching this, that you can believe that these people are like this, and like you said, people are like this, people do profit off of other people's misfortune and stuff.
It's funny you say that as well. Like we obviously mentioned a lot of the sort of documentary style footage or the stills of kind of tragedy happening. There's a scene sort of quite late in the film where the two kind of garage investors just sort of sat around essentially waiting for the crash to happen, and they're flicking through TV channels, and on the TV there's like I think Lance Armstrong appears, and like Barry Bonds as well, and these guys are like extremely famous cheats, essentially. People in the sporting realm had taken drugs, like lied again about certain things, and it's interesting that he sort of picked that imagery to almost say, look, this is basically what's happening in the financial sphere, and it's not something that kind of gets that public attention necessarily as much, and people don't sort of make pariahs or celebrities out of people in finances who basically make shitloads of money and screw over like the little people, inverted commas. But it's really interesting that he chose to do that as part of the editing. I thought it was quite a nice, like, subtle touch as part of the film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that side, but then he also intercuts a lot of like music videos and hip hop music and Britney Spears.
It feels at times like watching this. At times, it feels like a bit of an Oliver Stone movie. Like Oliver Stone.
That's a good shout. Yeah.
Oliver Stone is so. I mean, he. Not. I don't want to say infamous. I know he uses the word infamous, but I celebrate Oliver Stone as a director. Like you look at something like JFK, for example, which is it should be quite a visually linear film, but he does a lot of kind of jump cuts and quick cuts and edits. But I think the one that I may be wrong. I'm sure for a time it was Natural Born Killers had the most edits in a film, I believe.
Wouldn't
that was
surprise me
because there's so many cuts, there's so many
like newsreel
footage. Even at the end of that movie, like I really like that movie. Story-wise, acting, the visuals especially. But Oliver Stone, like I was reminded of him a lot watching. I remember thinking that in the cinema as well. Like you say, the cutaways to documentary footage, music videos, the real life things. It's like this feels very Oliver Stoney. There's nothing wrong with that. Like God, if you're gonna kind of follow a director, full of a stone. There you go, full of a stone.
And then there are moments where it feels like Succession in the kind of the chatty bits and
share a cast member as well, doesn't
Jeremy
it?
Strong.
I haven't seen Succession.
Oh man, it's very good. Well, Jeremy Strong in Succession is he's not a nice person basically, but he's kind of not dissimilar, his character, I would say, in this, apart from he's not quite as nasty, but like those scenes that are very dialogue heavy and the camera swishes around and stuff like that. I think Succession is, like some of the time in Succession you don't know what they're talking about when they're like selling companies, and they go into a lot of detail. And I think that that at times in this there are moments, I don't know about you guys, where the detail, although they say you're not going to understand this, but we're going to tell you anyway, I still, like, after like 5 minutes I was like, oh man, I do switch off a little bit at those moments, I think.
Well, no, like I said, I'm a big fan of the TV show Billions, and that is all about the stock market. But what you have to try and do, and it's the same with this movie, is you invest in the characters. If you can believe what the characters are doing and their motivations, their personalities and stuff, that's the thing you kind of
absolutely and
that's the thing you connect with.
Do you guys invest in these characters enough?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cast itself, like, is a fantastic ensemble of actors, and I think
you say that Christian Bale doesn't share a scene with any of the other
he's his own.
But you were saying, sorry.
No, just I think, like, if you imagine this same film but with like a lesser cast, and that's harsh to say because you could pull out anybody, but
this ties into my trivia, by the way, but sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
My one criticism that was like I say, I love that Steve Carell, like we see like that kind of raw emotion and that backstory to him. I sometimes felt with this film, because there's so many characters in this, that kind of backstory and that emotion and where all those characters are coming from gets compromised by the slickness and the story of what we're trying to tell. So I was actually thinking, I wonder if this film would have worked better as a series and had 6-7 parts where you actually really get to know the characters, because I feel like there's more that this film, there's something more that I missed from this anyway with some of those characters. Like Brad Pitt, like I felt like I could get to know him more. I felt like every character was just kind of like part of this bigger picture. So that was the one thing that was my criticism anyway.
I think that's a sign of the times, isn't it? That people are more engaged with TV shows these days than movies. There's a lot more time, a lot more opportunity to kind of build character and feel that sort of sense of empathy or understanding of like where they're coming from. In this, because you've kind of got the sort of those separate groups that sort of get introduced quite quickly, and then you're running with them on sort of parallel stories that occasionally sort of intertwine, albeit not so much with Christian Bale's. I guess it wouldn't have been a problem sort of a few years ago. No one would have really thought that. Like, films were quite happy to be seen as just this little snapshot and that's it. But I think we've become a bit conditioned to that sort of TV show way of thinking.
I think that's a really good point. I think it's because, and you got to think, like, thanks to the likes of HBO and stuff, TV shows now are like such a high standard. When we were growing up, TV shows you had TV shows with TV people in, movies with movie people in. Now,
never shall they beat.
Now it's like, oh, you get, Steve Carell in a TV show or so-and-so in a TV series. And so TV shows are now just as slick as movies, to the point where obviously the cinema industry, I think, people will blame COVID and, the superhero movies, which I do believe both of those play a part. But I also think it's because TV is so bloody good now. And I think that ties into, what Nige said, but what you said, Smith, that you could see this being like a 3-part show or
like a mini-series.
Yeah, mini-series. Just easily.
Just a bit more,
where you can buff out the characters. Is that the right word? Buff out the characters. Expand the character's backstory, like you say with Brad Pitt, maybe Gosling, but definitely Steve Carell. It's like you could really do a lot there. But I think for what it is in terms of the movie, I think it does handle the characters well enough to the story, because I think it's, like I say, it's one of those where the story is cumbersome and slightly confusing, but you rely on the characters.
This film could have been a mess when you think about it, right? It's like such a complex story, and
I wouldn't say it's exactly. I wouldn't say it's not a mess. but I'm saying that from my own ignorance of the subject matter. That's why. If you let's imagine we all three of us work in the stock market. Man, we're incredibly wealthy. Yeah. We've done very well for ourselves, boys.
And we're pricks.
And we're pricks. Yeah, shut up, you prick.
This parallel universe.
This parallel universe where we all have liquid lunches and stuff.
Apologies to any listeners who work in the industry
who are
precious. I'm walking back on it now.
well done for making all that money.
We're just jealous.
But if we worked in the industry, I'm sure watching this film, if you understood everything about the subject matter, and I'm not talking about the crash of the economy, I'm talking about shorting and how to play the stock market, you'd probably have a really different appreciation of this movie. But I think, like I say, I think the movie its surface level really does say, look at these characters played by these wicked actors. That's what we're expecting you to invest in, not specifically the minutiae of detail. God, minutiae, I brought that into it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's thank you.
It's a great word.
But yeah, I might use it in every review from this point on. But yeah, it's there's something about this movie that I both love and both kind of go,
Did you know you can now subscribe to Off Radar? It's a movie podcast on YouTube. You can watch exclusive trailers and listen to brand new full episodes. All links and info in the description down below.
Somebody stop me!
You're really getting into your review, aren't you?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine because
I just think
will allow it.
I will allow you to review the film that we're reviewing.
He has allowed me to review the film. I guess I'm going into it then.
Before we do that,
whoa!
Let's jump on board the Knife Trivia stock
trivia train.
The Knife Trivia. There's loads of trivia.
All aboard.
So I mentioned about the casting.
There he is.
One of the people we spoke about Brad Pitt playing Ben Rickard. You two just talk amongst yourselves. You're so rude. I'm trying to do my trivia.
Dad, he made me laugh.
Right, I'm doing extra trivia now to punish you. So Ben Rickard, played by Brad Pitt, someone who was heavily considered for this role, but through a rigorous audition process, Conan O'Brien.
Conan O'Brien was considered heavily for this.
I'm actually Googling Conan O'Brien.
Oh, you know Conan O'Brien.
Conan. Ginger Conan. Simpsons Conan.
Yeah, wow.
Wrote one of the best Simpsons episode ever.
There you go. For anyone who doesn't know. Mono.
Yeah.
Dope.
But, and we spoke about Margot Robbie in the bath. She was actually drinking a real 20-year-old bottle of Dom Perignon.
Really?
Champagne. Fancy. But she said the biggest challenge was that she had to read her lines from memory as opposed to... Which I think is don't actors always do that? But I suppose they're not always getting pissed whilst they're doing it. So
and I guess they're doing it against other actors rather than to a camera. So it's a bit different, isn't it? You're kind of waiting for those cues rather than a director going, right, now talk to the camera.
Also, let's be honest, it's not a script where she's just saying, character point, personality. This is like, I'm going to tell you about the stock
Yeah, it's like a presenter.
So,
it's a bit of a different skill, but anyway.
She did look quite hot as well, as in like physically warm, because like her neck looks like it's almost like she's been in the bath for a bit too long. It's gone kind of red, but that's not really trivia. That's just me making an observation.
I would not take issue with that if Margot Robbie was there.
Well, it's what?
Anyway,
red in your bath.
All right,
so I've still got more trivia to come.
Okay. Sorry.
She talk. So we might kind of touch upon the fact that occasionally like text or a quotation appears on screen, and one of the most memorable ones I would say is where it says, "Truth is like poetry, and most people fucking hate poetry," which is written that it was overheard at a Washington DC bar. Now we're speaking about people who bend the truth. Well, Adam McKay bend the truth here. They basically searched for a perfect quotation, couldn't find one, so just made one up that was suited the situation. Yeah, so it works really well, but it's a bit cheeky. But again, we'll let it slide. 2 more bits of trivia to go, if anyone's counting. So, celebrity cameos. Originally, rather than Margot Robbie in the bath, which obviously many people seem to appreciate, it was supposed to be Scarlett Johansson under a waterfall. So clearly the director's got something about women and water. Yeah.
Don't we all?
I've got a cat meowing.
I was going to say, I thought I had a cat.
So hopefully he's very excited about waterfalls. Or give me 2 seconds. I've got to sort this cat out, and I've still got a bit more trivia to go. So
he goes on camera, he's like, I just got to sort the cat out.
Yeah.
So I was talking about Scarlett Johansson under the waterfall. Just ran upstairs. I need to have a breath. Maybe I'm just doing a sexy pause. So instead of Selena Gomez playing a bit of blackjack, it was actually supposed to be Beyonce with the assistance of her husband Jay-Z.
Wow.
And Jay-Z was even scripted as saying, after losing the bet, that it's a hard knock life, which is in reference to his hit song.
I'm kind of glad they didn't do that. I love Jay-Z and I love Beyonce, but I don't think I wanted to hear him say, like, look at the camera and go,
yeah,
it's hard knock life. Yeah. Not my cup of tea.
And then last bit of trivia. Going back to one of our faves on the podcast, I don't know why I'm saying this, but he's a favourite of mine. Martin Short, of course, Three Amigos and other such wonderful films from the 80s. During the film, when they're in Las Vegas, there's a big billboard outside that has Martin Short on it. So, literally, there's a big short.
Oh,
so there you go.
Wow. That is... I like that.
What's the billboard of Martin Short for, though? I mean, I understand the joke, but I'm saying, what's he advertising in it? Is it a film? Is it...
Well, you'll have to go and watch the film to find out.
I have to rewatch it. God. Again.
Stephen Leong-Son, he recommended this film for us to watch. I'm going to attempt to play this down the mic.
Hey guys, hope you're well. Love the pod. Keep up the good work. So The Big Short is one of my favouriteest films ever in the world, as Smith would say. Before I even get into the film, like the cast is great. Off the top of my head, like Christian Bale, Brad Pitt, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling. So you're in good hands, really good actors. And I'm a bit of a casual movie watcher, so I don't know everyone's names. But there's loads of other people that you recognise, and you say, oh, he's in this and she's in that, and they were in this series. So yeah, it's a really good cast. It's obviously like quite a big budget. I think the film's major sort of achievement is making a subject matter which has absolutely no right in being interesting, which is like the housing market and mortgages and everything else. Really, really interesting. It's just such a different film, isn't it? So typically blockbusters, rom-coms, conspiracy theories, I don't know, you name it. But to do a film about the housing market, and I think that's why it really sort of struck me to make that interesting. It's just very original. You just can't believe that this stuff happened as well. This isn't like a work of fiction as such. I know it's not sort of like word for word, pound for pound, everything that you see in this movie happened, but it is a true story, and these are real characters, and you just think, I can't believe this happened. And the other thing is that the movie is obviously seen not through 99% of the population's eyes, who just like, oh, the American economy collapsed. These are the people that saw it 2-3 years before it happened, and it's their story. The one caveat I would say is that the first time I watched this film, I didn't I didn't watch it with subtitles because you just wouldn't unless you needed to. But and I know this is probably like a mark against it, but I watched it recently with subtitles, and there's so much dialogue back and forth and explaining to do. Actually seeing it with the subtitles and things were a little bit clearer to me. So anyway, I think it's a great film, and I don't want to waffle on too much, but for me it's a very solid 8. I'll be generous, 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a great film, and a bit like Nige, I will now wait for about 10 years before I watch it again.
He's wise.
Right, anyway guys, all the best, and keep up the good work. Cheers, bye.
Right, pack your bags.
Wow.
We're out of a job.
Stevie.
Well, I was listening I did listen to all of that message, and I found it fascinating. He clearly really loves this film, but he's very honest about, like, don't quite understand everything that happened. And I loved his point about listening to it, watching it with subtitles, because I think that would transform your viewing thing of it. But whilst I was listening to that message, I drew a picture of Steve next to Venger, Optimus Prime, and Manny Faces. So I don't know if you can see that. There's Sills.
Yeah.
There's Venger, Optimus Prime, Sills, and Manny Faces. So if one of our listeners wants that, write in, and I'll give it to you.
£10.
£10. No, I think it's free.
And you have to leave a good review on like Spotify or iTunes or something for our podcast.
There you go.
Well, what do we think then, guys? Well, Stevie, thank you so much for writing in and voicing in. And if other people want to do that, then send us a voice message on offradarpod@gmail.com, I guess.
I was going to say Smith's got to give out his personal number.
Do it.
So.
Record it, download it, and then email it. But yeah, what did you guys think? E-Talk, What were you?
Do you want me to go first? Because I was already kind of going there anyway. I saw this at the cinema, and my friend and I enjoyed it. We wouldn't profess to understanding everything that happened in the story, and I still don't profess to understanding the fine details of the story. But I think it's a film you admire the performance and the directing, and I think that's what you're supposed to clock onto, and the basic linear structure of the story as well. So I understand A to Z. I may not understand everything in between, but I get it. When I rewatched this, I got to admit I was sort of like, it's again all the great things, but I felt there was something missing. But in speaking to you guys, I'm re-appreciating what I enjoyed about it the first time, which was the level of acting and just the performances and what draws you in, the directing style and stuff. I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think it's the only way I downmark this is because of my own ignorance to the stock market, not understanding all the details. So I would give this, and this is primarily for the acting and stuff, I would give this a 7 out of 10, I think.
Nice. Okay. It's weird with the way round you kind of had an experience of this. I kind of had it slightly different because I watched it on a plane. So after that, I was incredibly underwhelmed, and I really didn't want to watch this again. There was quite a lot of hype around this film. But so this time around I wasn't that bothered about watching it. It's not a film that I've kind of gone back to watch again. I've never thought I really want to watch The Big Short again. It's not like a rewatchable film in that sense. I wouldn't have thought. But so I was surprised. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I really enjoyed the style, which I totally forgot. I forgot how kind of fresh that was, and the direction. And I guess one of you made the point that we're almost used to seeing that now, and we've seen it a lot. And I think there are comparisons to a bit of Scorsese, a bit of Oliver Stone, maybe even a bit of Tarantino in some of the kind of directing style. But McKay does have this very satirical look at things, and you can see that in Don't Look Up as well, which I felt was good. I don't think it was amazing. I felt kind of fell short a little bit, but you can definitely see that they're in this same kind of ballpark. And I agree, the cast are incredible. The editing I really enjoyed. I thought it was so was out of this world at times. You know, as an editor, I really appreciated like what whoever edited this did.
Hank Corwin, who was nominated for an Oscar.
Was he nominated? Wow. Well,
yes.
Yeah, and you know, I thought, I don't know what he was up against.
Knows good editing when he sees it.
But yeah, it really was. It was so like on it. But, you know, at times it was so quick, but then, you know, it slowed it right down for those moments of, like, drama with, like, Steve Carell's character, or, like, especially his character, who you can tell I kind of have a soft spot for in this film, but probably not just Steve Carell, but his character, you know, he really did kind of... I could have watched his character be the lead in this film, I think, and maybe that is my biggest criticism, that it is what I said earlier. You know, there's a lot of very cool characters and a lot of characters in this film. I don't connect with all of them because of that reason. I can kind of appreciate what he's doing with this, and I still would be really interested to see it as a series. But saying all that, I'm not going to hurry back and watch this film. I don't think it's a film that I would go, oh yeah, I definitely want to watch that again. I'm still going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I thought, with the subject matter, with the cast, with everything, I just thought it was an enjoyable watch.
We like it.
Nige.
So I guess for me, like, I've been on a bit of a run recently of kind of, when I've gone back and rewatched films, I've appreciated it in a different way and like potentially changed my rating. I remember the first time I saw this, I just remember thinking, oh yeah, it was all right, like a sort of 7 out of 10 type film, really. And obviously got the opportunity to watch it again for this. And like, speaking about the film's credentials, like I mentioned, obviously got nominated for Best Editing. Actually got nominated for 6 Oscars, wow. Winning 1 for Best Adapted Screenplay. Cost $50 million to make. I imagine a lot of that cost was obviously on the cast. The cast, yeah, and made 133, so more than double.
Very good.
And I think it is a really solid film, but for me, there's just something about it. It almost feels like, and I know acting is primarily this anyway, but it just feels like a bunch of famous actors kind of doing a bit of make-believe as real people, and it just feels a little bit disconnected for me.
Just described acting there now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I said that beforehand. I understood that was going to be the case, but I think almost having such famous, recognisable people, and it's like
you're looking at the actors rather than
it's like, oh look, it's Christian Bale with a fake eye. Oh look, it's Brad Pitt in a pub in England with a sort of scruffy face. And blah blah blah.
In a pub,
oh, it's Steve Carell with like a weird sort of gingery blonde hair, and it just, I don't know, there's something about it. And like the style kind of rubbed me up a little bit the wrong way. I just didn't take to it as much. I don't remember that much about it the first time I watched it, but this time watching it again, it was almost a little bit too slick, a little bit of style over substance in some regard. It's one of those films where it's like, oh, you're waiting for the payoff of when everything happens, and to be honest, the payoff isn't as satisfying as you hope it would be, and you kind of know that there's going to be a payoff. You know there's a financial crash. But yeah, a long way of saying, essentially, I still think it's all right. I still think it's a 7 out of 10 film. Like, it hasn't
Isn't
really
that funny?
changed.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? We've all got really kind of things we, I guess maybe dislike's too strong a word, but aren't too keen on about this movie, but we all kind of fall in line with the same rating. That's so strange.
It's not a bad film, I don't think, and I think it...
No, that's the thing.
It's definitely not. It's a very well put together, like, enjoyable enough film. It's just...
But we all criticise it in different ways.
Yeah.
That's what I love about that.
But I remember the fact, obviously, I went to the cinema and watched it, and when it got flagged for us to watch for this podcast, it is not a film I'd thought about since.
No.
And I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
So
and guys,
that's tickled my bits.
Tickled the detox ding dong. And guys, what do you think of The Big Short? Get in touch. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Leave a voice note. Tweet us on Off Radar Podcast. You can't tweet Nige anymore because he's not on Twitter.
No, balls to you, Twitter.
But you can tweet me
Musk.
at Joe Sapir and James Etok at Serial Geek. So yeah, where did The Big Short land? Did it fall short?
No, he's done it.
Long. No,
he's lost it.
No, gone. He wrote that down. I could see he was reading that. Still messed it up. Yeah.
Did you really?
Not.
Lies. Sees a lie like those dirty bankers. Right, old liar.
Dirty bankers.
Right, well done. That's done. We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.